Otaru, Morinoki Hostel, 4 septembre 2019. 40 minutes.
40 minutes. My speech has to last 40 minutes. An eternity. For you, the audience, who must both feel this sincerity and understand the meaning of my words through my changing intonations. As you listen to the esteemed interpreter, given the task of translating them, 40 minutes, but that's at least 10 pages. And still, some of the speeches of those who came before me were up to 19 pages, even spiced up with some terribly mysterious graphs or childhood photos. 40 minutes, given the simplicity of what I have to tell you, is a very long time. How to live through and give life to these interminable minutes. These minutes you'll be counting the pain, perhaps, by my imprudence, if I bore you, a moral sin for me, or for any woman or man of the theatre. That's a mortal sin. To be boring, anything but that, anything but making you suffer so.
Les 3 lauréats de cette année, Dr. Ching W. Tang, Dr. James Gunn, et moi.
Since you have also kindly come to honor the Inner Memories Foundation's choice for this year's 3 laureates, Dr. Chin W. Tang, Dr. James Gunn, and me. On the 31st of July in Paris, I had already written, "We are such stuff as dreams are made on."
La lauréate d'un aussi majestueux prix que le prix Kyoto.
From what stuff is made the laureates who receive such a proud prize as a Kyoto Prize? By whose hands have I been woven from what dreams by innumerable dreamers? Who has conjured me? Who are those whom, before and much more than I, had earned this prize? And those innumerable possible laureates, glorious and anonymous, how to call their names, how to give them justice.
Qui l'a moissonné? Sous quel soleil? La France, bien sûr, mon pays bien-aimé.
From what milk and what bread have I been nourished? Who needed it? From what earth did it wheat grow? And who harvested it? Beneath what suns? France, of course, my beloved country, has protected me most of the time, cared for me and educated me. But besides France, what other lands have cultivated me, inspired me? To whom do I owe myself? What multitudinous traces must I follow upon seeking to express my gratitude, my frustration, my fear at times? That is what I must do, write this speech. I must track down all these paths, drawing planetary web, leading to my imperfect little me, as every human is drawn this way, and while speech has intimidated me, it has also pushed me toward this quest and this recognition. Upon how many hundreds, perhaps thousands of other women and men have you in fact bestowed in splendid and gracious prize in bestowing it upon me? Today, to whom do I owe things, privilege, this wealth, this refinement, this kind company, to whose sweet heroism, dedication, constancy, genius, enlightenment, and how much struggle and death did there have to be so that I, a woman, a wife of a woman, could live freely in a country almost in peace. could do theatre freely and receive such an honor.
Et Monsieur Inamori, qui en versant sur mon théâtre
And Monsieur Inamori, raining down golden redeeming drops upon my theatre, and thus compelling me to do better, what does he desire? I have decided to create the Kyoto Prize as a means of recognizing persons who have made outstanding contributions to the progress of science, the advancement of civilization, and the enrichment and elevation of the human spirit. Those worthy of Kyoto Prize will be people who have worked humbly and devotedly, sparing no effort to seek perfection in their chosen professions. Their achievement will have contributed substantially to the cultural, scientific, and spiritual betterment of mankind. Perhaps more importantly, there will be people who have sincerely aspired through the fruits of their labors to bring true happiness to humanity.
Mais se rend-il compte de ce qu'il dit?
Does he even realize what he's saying? But still he says, at the very least, I hope to honor these people and thereby to motivate them and others like them to reach still greater heights. Does he really truly realize what he's asking, this admirable man? Given his profession, he must know the savagely cynical slope our world is hurtling down at breakneck speed. One cannot help but remain astonished and overwhelmed before the strength of the spirit and enduring childlike innocence that it takes to levy such a wish, stemming from the landscape of human goodness out of another time. In a sense, this wish brings us to task. Yes, this prize brings us to the tasks of our dreams. But sincerely, Monsieur Inamori, did I sincerely do that? Did I sincerely aspire to bring true happiness to humanity?
To bring true happiness to humanity?
I think that I have very pretentiously tried. We, women and men of the theatre, we all think that we must be of some service to something, that the stories we choose to tell, or rather, the stories that decide to be told by us, are of service, that they enlighten and nourish, are indispensable. We think that a formal transformation theatre demands, in order to become theatre, necessarily carries along with it the transformation, the elevation that humans all need in order to become sincerely human. Some see this same power in prayer. Otaru, September the 5th. Every night, just before going to open the door to our theatre, I remind the young people who join us to help serve dinner to our audience members. Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please, we are about to open the theatre. And when I'm very full of joy, your attention please, we are about to open a lovely theatre. And everyone behind the bar smiles. Sometimes, when we have been upset by an outside event, and the Lord knows we have some upsetting and painful events these past years in Paris, then I add, I remind you that it's our job to care for soul, and murmur to myself, as always. Caring for souls and being aware of it, committing ourselves to caring for each other's soul, isn't that enough for social and political task? Isn't that what the words inscribed on the French pediment, liberté, égalité, and fraternité, are really supposed to mean? Isn't that what Monsieur Inamori imagined when he created this ambitious prize? My friends and I, we know that a work only gains in dignity, art and beauty when the conditions that give birth to it, for it is a fabulous birth, when these conditions have been loving, ardent, impassioned, and full of trust. And that it is all the more so if all of us, actors, actresses, technicians, administrators, co-director, and myself, care for one another. If we embark together upon this fragile and perilous ship, tossed about in an unfolding show, with trust, wishing the best for one another, if we love one another.
Si nous nous sommes aimés. Pour cela, il nous aura fallu.
While I don't wish to bring sadness to this lovely gathering, I must say that this beauty and love requires of us to resist the disappointment of our times. The indifference of our world, its absolute lack of form and meaning, its remorseless economic conformity, its idiotic, murderous economic conformity that is sung and supported by the very people who should be denouncing it and fiercely fighting to protect us from it. I'm talking about those whom we once honored by bestowing upon them the noble name of servants of the state, but whom would better be called government lucky. I must return here to this mysterious work of innumerable weavers, this stuff that you and I and all of us are made on. Well known or ungratefully unknown. It's up to me today to try to give recognition to some of them without boring you with a tedious list. Of course, I must tell you about my parents, about my childhood. I would wish a father like mine upon any girl. It's true that he was always concerned for the future of his two daughters, and likewise that he dispensed all manner of warning as to the difficulties of the path I had very early on decided to follow. However, never ever did he allow me to entertain the notion that anything whatsoever was impossible for me to accomplish, if I was willing to do what it took, and what it took was passion, effort, and belief myself. How we quarreled, he and I, or at least for as long as he was still strong and in good health. We never fought again after he had his aneurysm. I was too careful. But we missed our fights. We missed never agreeing on anything and yet loving each other completely. I was left-wing, he was right. He had fled from the Soviet Union in 1923. His family, Jewish, had attempted to live under the Bolshevik yoke, but in vain. He fled to France with his little sister when he was only 15 years old, still almost a child. 2 or 3 years later, his parents arrived in Paris. It's a long and extraordinary saga, similar to that of thousands of other Russian immigrants, except that for my grandparents, Alexandra and Tamara, it became similar to that of the massacre of millions of Jews at Auschwitz. Without fully understanding the egalitarian operations of our troupe, even perhaps disapproving of them, he was nevertheless very proud of me. As for me, I sometimes found the films he produced too commercial. And he called me a snob and reminded me that I seemed happy enough to benefit from the financial support his commercial films provided. He was right and I was wrong. I hope I can tell him that someday. He took me to the set. It smelled of the warm rubber of electronic cable, of actors and actresses' powders and creams. It was swelling hot from huge projector. And then, one day after my baccalaureate exam, you should speak better English, he said. My mother was English, but my English was not fit for England. And I was sent, with my enthusiastic consent, to spend a school year at Oxford, St. Clair's Hall. At the corner of Lasbury and Bunbury Roads, I learned English there, of course, but mostly the Blessed Be the British University stage, where I learned about the theatre, and my life started down the path it was to follow, and from there, a voyage the other side of the world would confirm my decision. Otaru, September the 6th. Why is it so hard for me to imagine writing the speech like my predecessor had done that tells my autobiography? Why does it seem too simple, insufficient even? It's because I know deep down that my internal growth, my personal novel of initiation was but a road in search of travel companions, of work, life, friendship, love, adventure, dreams, and a positive revolution. I foresaw, I knew it all along, that I would do nothing all on my own, except perhaps travel for a moment, precisely to expose myself to the cold and the fear of solidarity voyage itself, the course in destiny and initiation, the journey. Here, I brought my ticket. It was a ticket, Marseille to Yokohama, on a mixed passenger and cargo ship, the Camboge, from the Maritime Transport Company, leaving April the 30th, 1963, from the dock. No, I can't read the number. First stop was Port Said, the entry to the Suez Canal. Yes, we took the Suez Canal. The three Great Lakes that it connected were still, at that time, strewn with the wreckage from ships bombing during the catastrophic, idiotic colonial expedition led by France and Great Britain, with the help of Israel, which sought to regain the canal that Gamal Abdel Nasser had the audacity to nationalize in the name of Egyptian people. I was crossing history, stopping over in Aden, then Bombay. The boat sailed into port, a wave of scent of mango and shit wafted from the neighboring market. The sun was rising. Crows seems to be trying to attack the ship. I set foot on Indian soil for the first time. It appears as but myth and legend. During this stopover, I was blind to anything but magnificent. I will not see the dark side until the way back. My love story with this country continent would come later. Colombo, Singapore, Saigon, smack dab in the middle of the Vietnam War, Hong Kong, Kobe, arriving in Yokohama on. The ticket promised nothing, but the journey lasted 30 days, so we probably arrived on June the 1st, 1963. It was raining. It was pouring. It would rain like that for 2 months. Oh, I hated Japan over the course of these 2 months. I did not speak Japanese, obviously, and the Japanese in 1963 did not speak anything but, obviously. Even signs, pantomimes that seems clearer to me get only wide eyes and terrified refusal to even attempt understanding. Oh, how I hated the Japanese during these 2 months. And then a magical fairy appeared. That was Marcel Giulialis, a French journalist who spoke perfect Japanese. They married at that time to a Japanese woman. We used to say a fine connoisseur of Japanese culture like Marcel in French that he was tatamized. When he finally returned from Korea, Marcel took me under his wing, reassured me, and helped me get oriented. It was thanks to him that I really began to travel this country, whose culture of film and theater would become the source of inspiration and perpetual inspiration. One of my greatest teachers, the others being India, Bali, Mariel Holid, Jack Koppel, and my work companions, but I'll get to that later. Oh, how I then began to love Japan and the Japanese, and will forever after. One day, before Marcel's return from Korea, desperate under the interminable deluge, I was wandering on foot in incomprehensible Tokyo of 1963, a Tokyo which was preparing its Grand Pacific comeback to the world stage by organizing the 1964 Olympics, which would be an immense success for the city and for all of Japan. But this preparation seems to me, however, to destroy everything that hadn't already been destroyed by the American bombs. Aghast, I watched the day-to-day disappearance of everything that remained of old Tokyo from before the war, or that had been constructed in the 19 years since. Such beautiful neighborhood built from the wood vanished overnight. Magnificent 19th century buildings that had survived the destruction of the war were demolished. This is actually how Kon Ichikawa begins his marvelous film on the memorable games. A gigantic concrete ball launched into the facade fell face down to the ground, making almost no noise at all at its falls, like a stoic resistance fighter facing the firing squad. Ever since, all over the world and in my home country, I continuously ask myself the question, why in the name of progress do we feel we must destroy so many urban and natural landscapes so dear to the hearts of those who live there and so precious to our inner harmony? To avoid, as far as possible, what George Orwell calls destructive progress, should we not employ more discernment and humility? Is this question reactionary? Should we not reflect a bit more before we decrease what is beautiful and humanly livable, while increasing our voracious appetite for energy and resources? I was wondering, as I said, desperate and alone in Japan, that did not resemble my dreams of Japan. I arrived with my guidebook soaked in my hand, indicating that it and I had quite likely reached the Sensoji Temple in the Asakusa district, completely by chance. There was indeed a huge temple before me, but blinded by my bad mood, I did not see it, and continued on my own down the small street, bristling with life despite the weather. I allowed myself to be guided unconsciously by music that seems to be calling out to me down a back alley to a minuscule and very colorful entrance to what could only be a theater, also minuscule. From whence this music sprang, whether amplified or not, I do not remember. Only that it was very powerful, very loud. But of course, it must have been a recording because once inside, Ottawa, September the 7th. Once inside, I saw only one single actor, a young actor, who would, all on his own, give meaning to my Japanese despair, my solitude, the rain pouring down my whole journey. Oh, if I could give you his name, thank him and share the Kyoto Prize with him in front of you. In one afternoon, this young man opened to me the awesome doors to the kingdom of actors. It was on this day, in this minuscule room, half full of attentive and enamored old ladies and inscrutable old men. Then that I understood for the rest of my life what a true actor is. Alone on the stage at first, his eyes staring off into the horizon filled with troubles, as I imagined, the hordes of invaders on horseback rapidly approaching. He spoke, he yelled. I understand nothing, but saw everything. In the panic in his gaze, I saw the panic of horses under horsewhips forming at the mouth, their hooves raising dust, tearing up grassland, ascending clouds, sending clouds of black earth flying like the bomb. Seized by sudden inspiration, he grabbed this great drum, the better to alert his village with that drum. Perhaps it belonged to a temple just behind the scene. Whatever the case may be, he set to drumming an alarm that could raise every hair on any head anywhere nearby and arouse even the most fearful of sleepy peasants. He was Prince Hall, he was Hotspur, he was Falstaff, he was Macbeth before the moving forest, he was Henry V and Shakespeare. For the young, ignorant traveler that I was, in that watched little nothing theater in Asakusa, there was no Japan and no West on that day in the world summoned by the young actor. There was only theater, universal, human and spectacular. He was wonderful, that young actor probably had to head of the acting troops. I called it Little Kabuki, and it was until much later, quite recently in fact, as a performance of Daigoro Tachibana troupe, that I learned that this style is called Taishu Engeki and translates as People's Theater, the popular theater. Do you realize that my whole life I have aspired to the idea that the Théâtre du Soleil would be worthy of the name. And there were other moments of enlightenment. Before the final docking in Yokohama, the Lukamboji made a stopover in Kobe, whereby marvelous chance I was able to see an outdoor no performance illuminated by massive flames. I returned to the ship afterwards, staggering, stricken by the power, the splendor, the majesty of the form. I climbed a small ladder that led up to the bank where I had slept for previous months in a state of indescribable childlike exaltation. A marvelous world was in store for me. I was never going to sleep again. My encounter with unknown actor in Asakusa confirmed it.
Que j'ai fondé en 1964, après ce fameux voyage, était celle du navire.
The metaphor that I used and still use to talk about the troupe that I founded in 1964 after my famous journey was that of the ship, the boat, the skiff. I'll admit I saw myself more as the captain than as the ship's boy, but still I knew that the ship would not travel if every member of the ship didn't feel worthwhile, wonderful and fulfilled, even amidst the dangers and sacrifices that the journey would necessarily demand of us. at the beginning. Only at the beginning. I believed then. Now I know that this journey requires the best and deepest within each of us until the very end. Nothing can be taken for granted. Love, friendship, the audience's respect must continue to be cultivated every single day. A failure always feels like a betrayal, because it's a betrayal, erasing years of commitment and success. It's not fair, but that's how it is. In 1959, after a fateful rehearsal of Coriolan at the Playhouse Theatre in Oxford, I went to take Red Bus number 2 or 3, howling into the rainy darkness of the December night, trembling as one struck with Cupid's arrow. I decided as I climbed the stairs to the upper level of the double-decker bus to devote myself to the theatre. It's art, of course, that I vowed to explore, practice, and learn all throughout my life. But also people, a little people, a sample of the world that I want to create and unite around me and bring along on this amorous adventure. It's also politics, utopia, to setting an example and creating them. Two minuscule yet foundational story. I understood right away that I would need very brave and confident companions. Pina Bosch described the same intuition very well here in her acceptance speech of this very prize that you honored her with in 2007. In the rehearsal, I was afraid to say, I don't know, or let me see. I wanted to say, okay, we'll do this and this. I planned everything very meticulously, but soon realized that I was also interested by a completely different thing that had nothing to do with my plans. Little by little, I gave up planning. Since that time, I have been getting involved in things without knowing where they will lead. This is exactly what happened to me. I very quickly understood that the position of the omnipotent director who foresees everything, so-called master of form and meaning, was not enough for me. I wanted more. I wanted all of us to gain from the talent of each of us, for all of us to learn from each other, from each of us. That meant crossing unimaginable deserts. That meant, above all, that actors would hear terrifying and unwound words from the mouth of a man, or worse, a woman, who was also their director. And those words were, I don't know. Anyone who has not attended theater rehearsal probably is not aware of the anxiety, the sheer run for your life, terror even, that such an avowal can provoke in the minds of actors who have not had fair warning of the possibility, not to mention the method of director who doesn't know. Otaru Morinoki, September the 9th. And then, from the beginning, there were fairies, mustard fairies, balding fairies, old fairies, stooped over from arthritis, courageous and visionary fairies, from the National Council of the Resistance, Jenny Lauren, Jean Villa, who before our very eyes carved a radiant path of the Theatre National Populaire, an artistic, political, and above all, moral path, the Avignon Festival, the real one from back then, Paul Pox. Arnold Wecker, who gave us the rise to La Cuisine, his greatest success, his triumph, truth be told, when we were just minuscule, fledgling troupe of amateur actors. This was the show that would bring us into the world. The night of the opening, I saw him again, perched up in one of the balconies of the Lido, the vast covered stage where we performed, in his colored shirt and suspenders over his round belly. He danced sweating to the music as we took the Bastille. So happy for our success. We owe him so much. And as Akira Kurosawa says in his so simple yet moving speech that he gave here, for this same occasion, speaking of Jean Reno and John Ford, who I'll mention in passing, are also part of my pantheon, and who accompanied Kurosawa back to his car one night after a good French dinner. What nice people they were, I thought. They were warm-hearted, generous, and had the power to embrace people. When I got old, I thought, I want to become like them. And even though I consider them members of a race of giants, a race I don't belong to, I'd also like to be like them someday when I get old. Because we need people with warm hearts who are able to welcome us without fear, who are able to embrace us because they are without fear. They didn't see us burdensome rivals, but as their children or as their little sisters and brothers. And today's young creators have these same needs, those whom tell every morning that they are much too much and too many, too expensive and not profitable enough, that their economic model is overly idealistic or even harmful for our times.
Alors que de l'Irak au Chili, les peuples contre lui se soulèvent.
But is there any economic model we can be proud of? From Iraq to Chile, people are against it. There are many artists who are trying to have their projects outside of this model. Otaru, September the 10th. I write this speech with great difficulty as I'm getting news from Europe, or rather, as I go looking for them. Brexit, the scrumback, continue on with their fatal manipulations. Great Britain, the mother of democracies, is being undermined by a clone of a current US president. The ignoramus president commanding the most powerful country in the world has found his English double just as rude, deranged, and deceitful as he is, and both of them hammering away with lies, cynicism, and disrespect for the laws of their own countries and of the world, not only to tear the UK limb from limb, but to bring down Europe, one of the most astonishing political achievements in human history. Imperfect still, certainly, but amazing. Please, I hope you will allow me what might seem to you like a pointless digression to Japan, and specifically of today, an inevitable digression for a woman of the theater whose source is none other this world around us. How can I not pay tribute to the monumental, unwavering will of a few great men of massively differing political stripes, old sworn enemies who had the wisdom, after two wars that had ripped the world and the 20th century apart, to come together to build, muzzle, and bury the old hatred and carry out this tremendous work. This union of 28 countries speaking 24 languages, German, English, Bulgarian, Croatian, Danish, Spanish, Estonian, Finnish, French, Greek, Hungarian, Irish, Italian, Latvian, without even mentioning the 60 regional languages, great and small kingdoms, empires, and republics who were at each other's throats for 2,000 years, hell-bent on invading and tormenting one another, always against the best interest of the people, against all human compassion and wisdom, come together very laboriously, and I respect very imperfectly, to begin to think about peace among European people, to think in part about peace on earth. And while I sit here trying to write this message that I promised to write, in the small sweet town of Otaru in Hokkaido, two delinquent clones have in this fleeting moment taken up the noble and fragile tool of democracy to use it to add to the ill of the universe and tear apart again that which time, with the help of wise women and men, had tried to sew back together. Otaru, September the 11th. Careful, let's not get away from my message, from the stuff from which we are made, from all those besides the actor in Asakusa, upon whom you were bestowing the prize, without knowing it, that I am receiving today. First, when I was a teenager, there were the movies. Starting in 1948, I had the chance to live in Paris, a city that I adored. A city that adored film and still does today. All the movies came through town and in their original versions, which is true sign of love for film and its actors. As I mentioned, there were Richard John Ford, George Cukor, Capra, Minnelli, Hitchcock, Stanley Donen, Gene Kelly, Griffiths, Lalin Gish in Broken Blossoms, and in Victor Shostom, The Wind. There was Charles Laughton's The Night of the Hunter, and Mizoguchi Kenji. And also The World of Apu and The Music Room, and then Seven Samurai, and all of Kurosawa's exploded on screen. But you have, thank God, given him the honor he deserved before it was too late. There was also another singular star, Charlie Chaplin. I have drawn consciously or unconsciously, but unscrupulously from these gold mines. A bit like any playwright, great or small, has greedily drawn from the Homeric feast, from Eccles and Shakespeare, La Commedia, from Moleli and Chikamatsu Monzaemon. For all those who master Bunraku and Kabuki, there was Dostoevsky. For you and for those speaking with me tonight, I assume there are many others that I have forgotten in my favor, or that I have never known, or never knew enough of to care about. These people are sources, they are ocean. We little people bathing in their generous and rejuvenating waters, we owe them eternally. Otaru Morinoki Hostel, September the 12th. I woke up this morning without bravery nor inspiration, as I am nothing but debts. I know that I have already left out women and men, famous and humble, who have had impact on my fate, and thus on those I care about, and thus on my work that you are celebrating today. I already almost forget. Jacques Lecoq, I will forget others. Dueling Jobet. We should be able to carry out the daily superhuman tasks of discernment, noting down each night in a sacred notebook the names of benevolent fairies or guardian angels encountered over the course of the day, even before we know how to write. In my case, I believe they were innumerable beginning in my childhood. It starts with the French policeman who, during the Nazi occupation of France, didn't fill out the form that Gestapo gave him to provide information as to the whereabouts of my mother. June Hanan, my father, Alexander Mnouchkine, and child Ariane, and the names in the notebook would go on. To Master Marcel France, my exceptional and unconventional teacher who taught me to read by turning learning into an enhanced journey that I passionately sought out every day. I shed tears of rage when I was not sent to her little school. She was the first in a long line of wonderful teachers whose shadows are all here today to receive this prize with me. From this sacred notebook, I would be able to tell you all the names of those who made me better, or at least less bad, through their examples, their reprimands, or their legitimate and friendly criticism. All those who, through their battle, their heroism, sometimes their death, insisted that I have the small courage to say only what I really think, to not fall in line or give in to my dogma, even if it's chanted by thousands and supported by millions, so long as I was not absolutely sure that it represented my deepest normal convictions. All those who have shielded me from blows intended for me. All those who graced me with a smile, or a trusting look, or a sincere compliment. All those with whom I have laughed at myself, at ourselves, without fear and without reproach, laughing at ourselves together. That's an irrefutable sign of friendship. And you know what? All those who gave us or lent us money, yes, money, this fluid that circulates in the veins of all systems of production, and will continue to do so for some time still to come, whether we like or not. Perhaps I should say, whether we don't like it or not. Anyway, over the course of the past 55 years, people have given us money. They must know what we know in these circumstances, that this money represents something so much more noble than the money itself. It represents their respect, their understanding, their friendship, sometimes even their love. And above all, like this Kyoto Prize, it brings us to the task of doing better. And that leads me to my great encounters in life. As I said a bit earlier, look at the time. My speech has already gone on a lot. I said earlier that I considered the group of colleagues I work with to be my teachers. They have been and continue to be my strictest and most affectionate safeguards. Why? Because they know that I don't know. They know that in the shades of darkness an adventurous tribe travels through. My little lantern leads by intuition, and that while it may shed light, it also sometimes goes out. And when that happens, what wouldn't we do to carry on anyway? When the inner path seems blocked, how tempting it is to tap into acquired theatrical skill and come through the outside, through semblance and pretense, through a line that hooks, a scene that strikes. One was, and much more frequent, by that cerebral cunning, which aims to disguise impotence as intelligence, void as depth, and pass off nothing at all for intellectual nectar. I was spared all that first of all by my natural tastes, which are simple, some even say naive, but also and most of all by the pharaoh, gross and incredulous looks I would have received from my actor and actress friends had I ever allowed myself even the slightest slip up on this front. Never would they have let me forget the strength it takes to attack theater head-on, not even in the Himalayans, can one declare a summit truly attained if its suspect slope has not been conquered? People's Theatre strikes head-on from its steepest slope. Theatre or not theatre, that is the question, and the response can be seen, heard and felt by all of us, sensual and tangible. For all of us, you need courage, breadth, great humility, patience and muscle. And by that I mean you need a body respected and recognized as the principal tool of the art of acting. Sure, fine, all that is fine and well enough, but how? How can I tell you about those who made my life and make it still? How can I show them to you other than in the dry abstraction of a list of names? For how can the name of that tremendous writer, Helen illuminate for you the depths of our relationship in art and life, which for us are inextricable woven? What will you have learned about the immeasurable debt I owe to she who has taught me, that teaches me so much still? How can the name of that fabulous theatre musician, Jean-Jacques Lemaitre, tell you any more about the fundamental, essential role his music has played in my work of the past 40 years? How can the names Marina Frank, Guy Claude, Francis As, Charles Henry, Breda tell you anything about how much I owe to them? How can the name of my wife, Juliana, tell you anything about how much she means to me? And how can I share with you the pride, the love, and the gratitude that I feel for the tribe, this team, this turbulent family, this little galaxy of the sun, the Soleil, made up like the galaxies of great radiant stars and more modest planets, moons, comets, and even meteor. I'd like at least for you to know their faces, for some of them, the loyal. You will see time passing in their hair and across their brows. Some of them are no longer on this earth. There are also some of our children growing from show to show. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present you those upon whom you have bestowed the 2019 Kyoto Prize for Art and Philosophy, the Theatre of the Sun.
Ça, c'est le tout début.
This is 1984.
À la cartoucherie. Les saluts, les fondateurs.
This was the first performance after we moved. This is in 1970.
Et ceux qui ne sont plus avec nous. Martine.
And there are people who are no longer on this planet.
Ma meilleure amie.
He was a great cameraman.
Philippe.
And this is Philip, my best friend. He was a very good actor. And this was first performance. Great actors. And great dancer, Ursula. Andrés Pérez. He was a great theater man in Chile.
Et Bernard, celui qui a fait la lumière de tous nos films.
And those people who are still active, Hélène Six.
Jean-Jacques Lemaitre.
Jean-Jacques Lemaitre.
Charles-Henri Radier. le co-directeur.
And this is Shell Andy. She's a co-director.
Hélène.
And this is Hélène.
Eh oui, c'est à cet âge-là qu'elle a commencé avec nous.
Was her first performance.
Maurice. Juliana.
And this is Juliana.
Nirupama, qui nous est venu de l'Inde.
And this actor was from India.
Lucho et les enfants.
And children.
Ève.
And this is Eve.
Charoyer, qui nous vient de
And this
Perse
actor was from
et de France.
Persia.
Dominique.
And Dominic.
Dominique et Sébastien.
And this is Sebastian.
Et toute la suite que je vous laisse regarder.
And everyone else.
Georges.
And
Andrés et
George.
Myriam, Clémentine.
William,
Andrés.
Clémentine, Andres,
Simon et Juliana.
Simone, and Juliana,
Catherine.
Catherine,
Le cœur des Atrides. Tartuffe, Montis et Myriam.
Chorus, Montesimeria,
Renata, au Tibet.
in Tibet,
Delphine,
Delphine,
Serge,
Selju,
Olivia,
Olivia,
le spectacle, nous sommes venus jouer chez vous à Tokyo. Madame Lee,
and it was the performance in Tokyo,
et ceux qu'on ne voit pas d'habitude. Erhard, Stiefel,
and
sculpteur de
all the
masse.
members supporting us. For example, he sculpted mask
Antonio,
and stage set, Antonio
Hector,
in charge of stage set, and Victor,
Jean-Claude, à la couture,
Jean-Claude,
Sophie,
and Sophie is in charge of dress,
Pierre,
Pierre,
Pedro,
Pedro,
Enaruna,
Naluna,
Maria,
Maria.
et le bureau actuel.
So here in office, this is the how office looks at present.
Astrid,
Astrid,
la couture, Marie-Hélène et Nathalie,
Marie-Hélène,
Annie,
honey, they're preparing the
Hervé,
dress.
Martin, à la technique, David au bois,
Maritan, David,
Étienne
David.
partout,
Etienne, they go everywhere.
et Virginie à la lumière, Geoffroy à la lumière,
And the lighting,
Pascal,
Pascal,
Karim,
Khalid,
certains acteurs afghans qui aident à la cuisine et
from
au bar.
Afghanistan. He's an actor, but also works in a kitchen and also bar. He works at the bar as well.
Elsa, lumière aussi.
Elsa, she's in charge of lighting. Elena,
peintre, Hélène et Étienne. Thérèse et Marie-Lou, musiciennes.
Thérèse, Marie,
Anne-Lise,
musicians.
Daniel, notre peintre. Yann et ses oreilles.
Daniel
ses sons.
paints.
Didier.
Ian is in charge of sound.
Certains de nos professeurs, Jacques Lecoq,
And Jacques
Kim Duk-soo,
Lecoq,
un
Kim
immense
Duk-soo,
musicien coréen,
and all teachers for me,
notre maître
and a
de
great
Théâtre,
musician in
et
Korea.
Maitreyi.
They're all great
Nous aident
teachers
tellement.
to us. They helped us so much.
Thomas et Alexandre, Julien,
And the
Lucio et sa
children
fille,
of the
Albagaï,
Théâtre de Soleil,
Sarah,
the daughters
Amalia
of the Julia, Amelia,
et ses copines,
and
Iraj.
friends. Iraj,
Iraj, Dionisio,
Dionisio,
Galatea,
and Natea,
Lucien et Iraj dans la forêt qui marche.
Lucia, the Moving Forest,
Et notre acteur japonais, Ono-san,
and many other, and Ono-san, the
Armand,
Japanese actor, Armo,
Vincent,
Vincent,
Annabelle,
Annabelia, Judith,
Diane, Alice,
Edratia, Alice,
Sylvain,
Sylvain,
Maxence, Astrid,
Maxence, Astrid,
Siar, un jeune
Siar.
acteur afghan,
a very young actor from Afghanistan.
Et ça, c'est le
This
jour où nous
picture
avons
was
appris
taken
que
when
nous avions le Kyoto
the
Prize.
news arrived that I was awarded Kyoto Prize.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Mnouchkine. Please move to the center of the stage to receive the awards.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mnouchkine, please move to the center of the table.
Mnouchkineさん、ありがとうございました。